Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Core Class G1 Shockwave, or a Transformers Siege Netflix Shockwave shrunken down into this brand new Core Class scale point. Now before we take a look at Shockwave, we'll very quickly go over the packaging. As always, an amazing piece of artwork of Shockwave here transformed into the ship mode, very reminiscent of that original Siege leader figure, and surprisingly a new addition, that being this really peculiar looking Energon infused radar dish, which we'll be sure to touch base with later on in the video. As we come here to the side of the box, we get an amazing piece of artwork of Shockwave transformed up into robot mode. And I don't know about yourselves, but personally I would have much rather Hasbro repackaged the Siege Leader Shockwave without all of those additional accessories in the Voyager price point. Maybe they could have gone ahead and added this radar dish in instead of giving us that Siege Soundwave reissue. I really do think a Voyager Shockwave was definitely needed, especially considering that we've basically seen a back-to-back release for this character in the core class, as we very recently got the Bumblebee movie version, but still it's a pretty decent figure. And then finally, as we turn our attention here to the back, we do get some nice promo images of Shockwave in both robot as well as there in the ship mode. And taking a look here at the character himself, overall not a bad looking representation of him whatsoever. I think for the price point they've actually done a pretty decent job. Now as we take a closer look here at the details, the head sculpt as ever is spot on. It really does look fantastic, and the amount of paint they've applied to it is pretty surprising. You can see kind of this entire section which holsters the Cyclops eye into place has been sculpted and painted very nicely. We've got the antennas here for the side of the head with some pretty decent looking sculpt work, and the colour of purple they've used is almost a dead on match to what we saw with that Siege Leader offering, and personally I really liked that. I thought it looked great, and it definitely looks equally as cool here for our new core rendition. The metallic silver that we've got for this chest piece looks awesome. I am actually pleasantly surprised at how there are barely any paint bleeds whatsoever, despite kind of all these notches that we've got scattered around the sides. We've got the Decepticon logos slap bang here at the top of the shoulders, and of course that classic Shockwave asymmetrical design with the arm cannon here for this side, which also has been sculpted pretty nicely, and then of course the much more humanoid hand here for this side. Now the biggest difference in terms of design when in comparison to this version and the original one that we saw for Siege is that the weapons that originally were additional for that leader version are now integrated into the actual robot mode and will act as the main form of weaponry in ship mode. And to be honest, I don't think this is a bad look at all. Here from the back it really doesn't look too bad, and here from the front once again kind of gives almost a smokestack vibe to Shockwave, which too I think looks pretty nicely done. As we turn our attention here to the midsection of the torso, some nice detail kind of makes Shockwave look as if though he's ripped, and you can see there lovely metallic silver for the thighs, front and back, and the same can also be said here for the lower section of the legs. Very nicely sculpted with some silver for the outer, inner sections, as well as there for the tip of the toes. Now sadly I do have to be critical with this guy. As we flip our attention here to the back, much like the core hot rod, he's pretty hollow. So the entire head is hollowed out, the back of the arms are completely hollowed out, but the biggest issue I have is that the legs are really pretty dainty. They have barely any plastic in them whatsoever, and when you take into account that the knees are only on ball joints and he's pretty top heavy, it really doesn't take much to actually knock him over when on the shelf. So I do wish maybe they could have added an additional heel spur, or have perhaps just filled these pieces out ever so slightly more to make him a little more well balanced. But anyhow, as far as articulation goes, Shockwave does have a swivel joint here at the head, ball joints at the shoulders, and due to transformation you can also hinge this section up and down, allowing for a pretty decent range. We do get ball joints here at the elbows, which allow for the full 360 bend to 90. Sadly no form of wrist rotation, and I definitely think that is something they could have implemented. We do get a kick forward, a kick back, out to the sides, rotation here at the knee, and due to transformation way past 90, which is terrific, but sadly no form of ankle rocker pivot. So overall, for a tiny legend scaled figure, definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. But when you do begin to compare him to the likes of Starscream, I do think that he does sadly fall ever so slightly short, especially where those lower legs are concerned. Now as far as the accessories go, Shockwave does include kind of this watermelon, Cybertronian pizza, Energon infused radar dish. Honestly, it's a pretty interesting weapon to package in with this guy, and wouldn't have been the pick that I had chosen. It's almost as unusual as those big Energon mitts that we saw with Blitzwing, and kind of fits the character of Soundwave a little better, but nevertheless you can see certainly been painted very nicely. The metallic silver here around the sides, the red in the center, as well as the metallic silver there, and you can see here at the back completely painted and sculpted really nicely. Now when you actually peg it into the figure's hand, it kind of looks as if though his arms transformed into a clamp attachment and that he is holding it like this. And I don't think it looks that bad at all. It kind of does act as a secondary form of weaponry for his robot mode, and I can definitely imagine him disabling Autobots on the battlefield using incredibly high frequenced sound waves. So overall pretty decent. Now as we turn to some comparisons, here we have Shockwave compared alongside the core class Studio Series Bumblebee movie version. And out of the two, just as far as an actual figure is concerned, I do think the Studio Series version is just slightly better. I much prefer the use of pins for the elbows as well as knees when in comparison to ball joints. They're not too bad where the elbows are concerned, but those knees are definitely just a little too loose for my taste. And as mentioned beforehand, I do find that this new Legacy Shockwave is a lot more hollowed out when in comparison to some of our other characters, especially as we turn our attention here to the back. You can certainly see how the Studio Series version is pretty chock-a-block, especially where the back of the legs go. And initially I thought that it was maybe due to them including this massive accessory, but then you do have to consider that the Bumblebee movie version also includes a massive arm cannon. Definitely be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, out of the two, which do you find to be the better over one another. It's still not a bad figure for, once again, for $10. I think it's smashing, but if you are given the option between both of these versions, I definitely would recommend perhaps choosing the Bumblebee movie version. Here we have Shockwave alongside the core class G1 Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, who actually doesn't look too bad utilizing this radar dish weapon, and if anything it kind of suits the character of Soundwave a little better when in comparison here to Shockwave. And here for one final comparison, here we have the Transformers Siege Leader Shockwave compared alongside our brand new Legacy counterpart, and you can see as far as the design and the colours are concerned, they're basically identical. They really have done an exceptional job in kind of taking the design here for this much larger character and adapting it here into this much smaller rendition. And as far as the shade of purple goes, they're basically exactly the same, so I definitely thought that was a pretty decent touch, and you can see detail wise not too dissimilar at all. I still do wish that this version could have taken the slot that we're seeing from this character, as I really don't think it was a good idea to release two versions of Shockwave, both in a much smaller scale point. Be sure to let me know down in the comment section below, but if you guys rather had seen a core version of G1 Shockwave or perhaps a repack of the Siege Shockwave without all of the additional accessories and maybe taking the place of that repacked version of Siege Soundwave. Now turning to transformation for Legacy Shockwave, to begin with you're going to want to turn your attention here to the back and just flip these guns out to the sides. We can then come to the shoulders, rotate upwards on both sides and then hinge these outwards and lift these up and over the top of the head, much like the original Siege Leader transformation. Now as we flip here to the back, you'll notice a whole variety of different slots that will actually peg into the two tabs that we've got at the top of the shoulders, as well as two here for the forearms. Now once you flip this up, I would then recommend taking the head and snapping this section down, which will then pop out the command deck, and we can actually snap this here into place, and it really does just allow some of these tabs to lock in ever so slightly more securely. We can then come down here to this section, fold the pelvic plate forwards, ensure that this sticks out, and then bring those ball joints down. As you can see, it is slightly more extended, and now what you want to do is rotate here at the ball joints so that the kneecaps are now facing in upon themselves, and here we've got some slots. They're actually going to slide into this section, so bring this here up and over, snap that there into place, and of course rinse and repeat the same process for this side. And there we have the Legacy Core Class Shockwave fully transformed up into his Cybertronian Battlecruiser Spaceship Alt Mode, and overall not looking too bad at all. Much like the robot mode, this really does take heavy inspiration from that Netflix Siege design, and for the most part I think it's turned out pretty nicely. Sadly it's nowhere near as cool as the likes of the version that I believe we saw for Combiner Wars, where it was essentially just a straight up blaster. There is kind of a modification, or should I say a transformation, you can make to turn this into a gun, but it doesn't look as great as that Combiner Wars version in my opinion. But just as a spaceship, you can see some decent sculpt work here. For the top section, we do actually get the command deck, much like we saw on the leader version, and as mentioned beforehand, instead of these pieces becoming additional accessories, they are actually integrated into the transformation, so I thought that was quite a neat touch. And you can see they've been painted and sculpted very nicely, especially as we come here to the front piece. You can see this too has also been detailed pretty nicely, and of course as we flip here to the back we do have some arm kibble, but I really don't think looking too bad at all. You will want to make sure that you give this here a nice squeeze just to make sure that everything does stay tabbed in. And then as far as the radar dish is concerned, there is a peg here at the top that you'll just want to snap that there into, and it really does drastically alter the look, but if anything, kind of looks slightly goofy, so I'm more than likely going to leave it off when actually just messing around with this guy in the spaceship mode. Now, as far as the comparison is concerned, here we have the core class version alongside the significantly larger and more expensive leader class, so you can definitely see the stark similarities, and as mentioned beforehand, how these are actually integrated into the sculpt. They are add-on pieces here for the Siege release, and you can just see as far as the designs go, pretty much identical, so it is pretty cool how they did manage to kind of shrink this design into the core class scale, and you can actually use this as a weapon. So as we flip here to the underside, you'll want to push this post down, which will reveal a 5mm peg, and if we bring in the likes of, let's say, the Commander class Menasor, you can actually take this 5mm post and snap it into the hands of a much larger figure. I imagine it would work for Deluxe, Voyager, Leader, and Commander, and I actually don't think that looks too bad at all. And if anything, it's a slightly more impressive looking gun when in comparison to the gun that actually comes with this guy for that battle station. So if I do ever decide to keep this Shockwave in the alt mode, it will probably be for this Menasor, and if this is supposed to be kind of a throwback to how the Combiner Wars version was also compatible with that version of their Menasor, then I thought that was a nice touch. But if it is just something you can do, I really think it's pretty versatile. I'd love to know down in the comment section below what you guys think. Will you be keeping this Shockwave in gun mode, utilising it for Menasor, or will you just be keeping it as its own distinctive looking spaceship? One thing I will mention, however, is that when you do wish to take this peg and revert it back to its original position, considering it's kind of on the same almost hinge joint, it will more than likely actually kind of disengage this entire section. So I personally would recommend applying just a little bit of force here to the command deck and then shifting this back, as if you just pull it back, it's literally going to split all of this top section. And just for a quick comparison, alongside the Bumblebee movie core class Shockwave, you can see scale wise pretty much the same, this version being ever so slightly wider and a little bit longer, but both pretty nice looking alt modes for the character of Shockwave. And so, some final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Core Class Shockwave. Overall, for a Core Class $10 release, it's definitely not bad by any stretch of the imagination. As this guy goes, for those of you who weren't a huge fan of kind of the hyper-realistic detail that we saw on the Bumblebee movie version, then this is definitely going to look great paired alongside the likes of Megatron, Starscream, and Soundwave. Robot mode looks very impressive. It's quite cool to see how they've kind of taken that Siege Shockwave design and shrunken it down into this core format. I do think the addition of that Cybertronian radar dish is definitely a little peculiar, much like we've seen from a few of the other characters. All of these weapons just kind of appear to be thrown in and don't really have much association with the characters themselves. I much would have rather them just completely skip that altogether and had found a way to bulk out the back of the legs, or maybe just added an additional step in the transformation so that we could have had a little larger heel spur so that he wasn't so top heavy when in robot mode. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below. Is this a version of Shockwave you guys plan on adding to the collection? And like myself, would have you guys preferred if Shockwave had taken a slightly larger scale format? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comment section below, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.